Most people think intelligence comes from books, grades, or a high IQ. But some of the most psychologically intelligent people were shaped by something far darker. Pain. Not the kind people post about online. The quiet kind. The kind that forces a child to read the room before speaking. The kind that teaches someone to detect tension before anyone says a word. The kind that turns survival into a personality. And over time, something unusual happens. The pain sharpens perception. You begin noticing things other people miss. Patterns. Energy shifts. Hidden emotions. Unspoken intentions. Psychologists sometimes call this hypervigilance. But in many cases, it evolves into something deeper. A form of traumatic intelligence. Not intelligence built from comfort, but intelligence built from adaptation. Because when your nervous system spends years trying to protect you, your brain develops differently. You become emotionally analytical, socially aware, psychologically observant. You learn people before they learn themselves. And the strangest part is this. Most people who carry this intelligence never realize they have it. They just think they are too sensitive, too observant, too emotionally intense. But there are certain signs that reveal the truth. And once you see them, you may never look at yourself the same way again. One of the first signs is that you can instantly sense emotional changes in people. Even when nothing is said. Someone walks into the room slightly quieter than usual. Their smile lasts half a second less. Their tone changes by a fraction. Most people never notice it. But you do. Immediately. Because your brain was trained to scan for danger long before you understood what safety felt like. Children raised in unpredictable environments often become experts at emotional detection. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. When moods changed suddenly at home, your nervous system learned that tiny emotional shifts could predict conflict, rejection, or emotional pain. So your brain adapted. It started collecting invisible data constantly. Facial tension, voice patterns, body language, silence. And now, even years later, you still read people like survival depends on it. This is why crowded rooms can exhaust you. You are not only hearing conversations. You are subconsciously analyzing emotional energy from every direction. Most people walk into a room and see people. You walk into a room and feel tension. And this creates a strange contradiction in your life. People think you are calm. But internally, your mind rarely stops scanning. You notice who feels uncomfortable, who is pretending, who secretly wants approval, who is angry beneath politeness. You can sense emotional instability before it becomes visible. And while this ability can make you deeply empathetic, it can also become exhausting. Because hyperawareness keeps the nervous system alert, even during moments that are supposed to feel peaceful. This is why many trauma-intelligent people struggle to fully relax. Their brain learned that safety could disappear without warning. And once the nervous system learns survival, it struggles to trust calmness. But this ability also gives you something powerful. Depth. You understand people emotionally, not just socially. And that changes the way you see the world. Another sign is that you became emotionally independent far too early. There are people who grow up believing someone will always help them emotionally. And then there are people who learn very young that they are mostly alone. That realization changes a person permanently. When emotional support becomes inconsistent, the brain adapts by becoming self-reliant. You stop expecting comfort. You stop asking for reassurance. You learn to process pain privately. And eventually, people start calling you mature. But maturity is not always healthy development. Sometimes it is emotional survival wearing a professional mask. Trauma-intelligent people often become the strong one in every room. The listener, the stable friend, the emotionally composed person everyone depends on. But internally, many of them learn strength because vulnerability never felt safe. Psychologists call this parentification in some cases. A child emotionally forced into adulthood too early. Maybe you became the peacemaker in your home. Maybe you learned to hide your feelings to avoid becoming a burden. Maybe you realized nobody was coming to emotionally rescue you. So you adapted. And adaptation became identity. The dangerous part is this. Over time, you stop recognizing your own emotional needs. You become so skilled at surviving that you forget how to receive care. You feel uncomfortable asking for help. You downplay your pain. You say "I'm fine" automatically, even when you are drowning internally, because independence became protection. But emotional isolation has a hidden cost. People may admire your strength while never realizing how tired you are. And this is why trauma-intelligent people often feel deeply lonely in crowded lives. Not because nobody loves them, because very few people truly see them. Another sign is that you overthink social interactions constantly. After conversations, your brain replays everything. The tone, the wording, the pauses. You analyze what you should have said, what they might have meant, whether you sounded awkward, whether they secretly dislike you now. To other people, this may look like anxiety, but underneath it is something deeper. Your brain learned that social mistakes could lead to emotional consequences. Rejection, conflict, withdrawal, criticism. So now your mind tries to predict outcomes before they happen. This is why trauma-intelligent people often become exceptional observers. Your brain studies human behavior like a defense mechanism. You notice contradictions quickly. Someone says they support you, but their body language changes when you succeed. Someone acts kind publicly but becomes cold privately. You notice the emotional inconsistency immediately, because your survival once depended on recognizing hidden emotional danger. And over time, this creates powerful psychological insight. You begin understanding people beyond words. You realize that many people are driven by insecurity, fear, validation addiction, or unresolved pain. You stop judging behavior at surface level, because you can sense the psychology underneath it. But this level of awareness also becomes mentally exhausting. Your brain rarely experiences social neutrality. Every interaction carries analysis. Every silence feels loaded with meaning. And eventually, you become emotionally tired from constantly reading between the lines. This is why many trauma-intelligent people crave solitude. Not because they hate people, because silence feels safer than emotional decoding. Another trait is that you became highly adaptable in almost every environment. You can enter different social groups and adjust quickly. Different personalities, different emotional atmospheres, different expectations. You instinctively know how to blend in. This often looks like charisma, but sometimes it comes from years of learning how to stay emotionally safe around unpredictable people. Children exposed to unstable environments often become emotional shapeshifters. They learn what version of themselves feels safest around certain people. Quiet in one room, funny in another, invisible somewhere else. And eventually, adaptability becomes automatic. You read emotional environments quickly and adjust your behavior before people even notice. This makes you socially intelligent. But it can also create identity confusion. Because when you spend years adapting to everyone else, you sometimes lose connection with your authentic self. You become who people need you to be, not who you truly are. And this creates a painful question many trauma-intelligent people secretly carry. Who am I when nobody needs something from me? That question can feel terrifying, because survival personalities are built around external emotional conditions. And healing often begins the moment you stop performing emotional roles for acceptance. The moment you realize this changes everything. Real intelligence is not endless adaptation. Real intelligence is knowing when adaptation is no longer necessary. Another sign is that you are unusually calm during chaos. While other people panic emotionally, you become focused, clear, composed, alert. This confuses people. They assume you are naturally strong under pressure. But often, your nervous system simply recognizes chaos as familiar territory. For many trauma-intelligent people, calm environments feel emotionally unfamiliar. But crisis feels normal. Your brain learned to function inside instability. So when difficult situations happen, something activates inside you automatically. You think faster. You observe more carefully. You emotionally detach enough to function. Studies on trauma responses show that prolonged exposure to stress can increase situational awareness and rapid threat assessment in certain individuals. The brain becomes efficient at reading danger. And while this adaptation can create resilience, it also creates a hidden emotional problem. You may unconsciously recreate stressful environments because peace feels emotionally unfamiliar. Some people only feel emotionally alive when something is wrong. Not because they enjoy suffering, because their nervous system became chemically attached to survival mode. And this is where trauma intelligence becomes dangerous. The same adaptation that once protected you can quietly control your life. You become addicted to urgency, emotionally uncomfortable with stillness, suspicious of happiness, because peace requires trust. And trust feels risky when your past taught you that stability can disappear overnight. Another sign is that you understand pain in other people immediately. You can hear sadness hidden behind jokes, exhaustion hidden behind ambition, loneliness hidden behind confidence. Most people listen to words. You listen to emotional patterns. Because suffering changed the way you observe human behavior. You understand that people rarely reveal their true emotions directly. The angry person may actually feel powerless. The arrogant person may secretly feel inadequate. The people who constantly seek attention are often starving for validation internally. And because you understand emotional masking, people often open up to you quickly. They feel emotionally safe around you. Not because you always say the perfect thing. Because they sense you understand human pain without needing explanation. This is why trauma-intelligent people often become therapists for everyone around them. Friends vent to you. Strangers overshare with you. People feel seen around you. But there is something heartbreaking hidden inside this dynamic. Sometimes the people who understand others best feel the least understood themselves. Because they became experts at emotional support while quietly neglecting their own emotional wounds. And eventually, they begin carrying everyone emotionally while nobody notices the weight they carry internally. Another trait is that you struggle to trust praise completely. When someone compliments you, part of you questions it. When someone loves you deeply, another part waits for disappointment. This is not because you are ungrateful. It is because your nervous system learned inconsistency. Maybe love once came with conditions. Maybe approval disappeared suddenly. Maybe affection was unpredictable. So now your brain searches for hidden risk even inside positive experiences. Psychologists call this negative expectancy bias. The mind anticipates pain because it was trained by repeated emotional unpredictability. This creates a strange emotional contradiction. You crave connection deeply, but fully trusting connection feels dangerous. You want love, but vulnerability activates fear. You want success, but visibility makes you uncomfortable, because part of you still associates emotional exposure with risk. And this is why trauma-intelligent people often sabotage opportunities unconsciously. Not because they want failure, because success creates visibility. Visibility creates vulnerability, and vulnerability once felt unsafe. This is also why compliments sometimes feel emotionally uncomfortable. Person praises you. Your brain immediately searches for hidden motives, because survival-oriented minds struggle to fully relax into positive attention. But healing begins when you recognize this pattern consciously. Not every calm moment hides danger. Not every compliment carries manipulation. Not every relationship ends in betrayal. Sometimes safety is real. And learning to believe that may become one of the hardest psychological battles of your life. The final sign is the most important one. You think deeply about human behavior constantly, not casually, obsessively. You analyze why people do what they do, why families repeat cycles, why insecure people seek power, why loneliness changes personality, why childhood experiences echo into adulthood. You are fascinated by psychology because, in many ways, your life forced you to study people early. Trauma-intelligent people often become deeply introspective. Pain pushes consciousness inward. You begin questioning identity, meaning, emotional patterns, and human nature itself. And over time, this creates emotional wisdom that cannot be learned from books alone. Because some knowledge only comes from surviving experiences that permanently change the nervous system. You begin realizing that most human behavior is driven by invisible emotional conditioning. The need for validation, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of insignificance. You understand that adults often carry unhealed versions of their younger selves everywhere they go. And once you see this, the world starts making more sense. You stop seeing people as simply good or bad. You see wounded nervous systems trying to survive. You see emotionally conditioned behavior repeating itself across generations. You see how unhealed pain quietly shapes relationships, ambition, insecurity, and identity. And this awareness changes you, because traumatic intelligence is not just heightened perception. It is painful self-awareness, the ability to recognize emotional patterns most people never consciously notice. But there is one truth many trauma-intelligent people need to hear. Your survival adaptations are not your final identity. The hypervigilance, the overthinking, the emotional self-protection, the fear of vulnerability, these were survival strategies, not permanent definitions of who you are. And healing does not mean becoming less intelligent emotionally. It means teaching your nervous system that survival is no longer the only mode available. It means learning that peace is not weakness. Rest is not danger. Vulnerability is not failure. For years, your mind may have protected you by expecting pain before it arrived. But eventually, true growth begins when protection stops controlling your entire identity. Because the goal is not to erase what trauma taught you. Some of your greatest depth came from those experiences. Your empathy, your awareness, your emotional intelligence, your psychological insight, those things are real. But healing means separating wisdom from fear. It means keeping the awareness without staying trapped inside survival mode forever. And maybe this is the strangest part of traumatic intelligence. The people who suffered deeply often become the people who understand humanity most clearly. Not because pain is beautiful, but because suffering forces observation. It forces introspection. It forces emotional depth. It forces awareness of things comfortable people rarely notice. And eventually, you realize something important. Your past may explain you, but it does not have to imprison you. You are not only the child who survived difficult environments. You are also the adult capable of rebuilding safety internally. Slowly, patiently, consciously, because real healing is not becoming someone new. It is finally becoming someone who no longer has to survive every moment emotionally. And maybe that is the true form of intelligence. Not the ability to predict danger, but the ability to feel safe enough to finally live. Which of these traits did you recognize in yourself? And do you think trauma creates deeper emotional awareness? Or does it simply teach people how to hide their pain better? If this shifted the way you understand yourself or other people, subscribe for more psychological and emotional insights.